Hi, and welcome to the second part in our Pixel 2D tutorial series. In this video we'll go over the basics of the Unreal Editor, how to navigate it, and how to interact with the different objects inside of it. First up, let's start with the structure of the editor. It's composed out of a few tabs, the first one being the Place Actors tab. An actor is basically any object that can be placed into the world. So everything that you see here in front of you is an actor. Actors support 3D transformations such as translations, rotations, and scale, and they can also be created and destroyed using gameplay code, which can be C++ or Blueprint. In our case, the Place Actors tab is not that useful since it mostly contains pre-made actors for 3D environments, so it has lights, it has visual effects, geometry, and volumes. But most of them don't really apply to the type of games we're making, so you can safely ignore this for the most part. The next tab in our list is the Viewport. This is arguably your most used tab since it's basically a window to the worlds you create in Unreal. And you can navigate the viewport just as you would navigate the levels in a game. More on viewport navigation and interaction a bit later. But now let's move on to the next tab, which is the World Outliner. Every actor that you can see in the viewport also appears in the World Outliner. So it's a way to see all the actors you have in your current viewport and another way to select them. So for example, if I want to select this, I can select him either via clicking him on the viewport, or I can select him by selecting him from the World Outliner. The next tab is the Details tab. Basically, the Details tab contains information, utilities, and functions specific to the current selection in the viewport. So, if I select another actor in the viewport, the details will change. It contains transform, edit boxes for moving, rotating, and scaling actors, displays all the editable properties for the selected actors, and provides quick access to additional editing functionality depending on the types of actors you've selected in the viewport. You'll see that this is a really useful tab that you'll be using constantly. And last but not least, we have the Content Browser tab. The Content Browser is the primary area of Unreal Editor for creating, importing, organizing, viewing, and modifying content assets within Unreal Editor. So basically every actor, every texture, every material, every model that you have and create is stored somewhere here. So you can navigate it by clicking this button and it's gonna show you an alternative view, and you can navigate it just like you navigate Windows Explorer if you're on Windows. Select the folders, click them, double click them here, and you can see that all of these are different various actors and files that are present or are helpful to our game. So I've sorted them in a pretty easy to follow way. So you have the blueprints here, the demo scene, the flipbooks, the fonts, materials, and everything. So feel free to explore these folders by yourself and see everything that's included with the project by default. Let's move on to Viewport Movement. So moving through the viewport is not terribly complicated. You navigate it just like you would navigate a first-person shooter game if you're familiar with the genre. So you hold the right mouse button and then press W, S, A, and D. So W moves forward, S moves backward, A left, D right, and by holding the right mouse button down, you can rotate the camera, so you can freely move around the level. If you want to move faster, there's the camera speed button here, and you can slide it all the way to whichever value you want, and you can move faster or slower depending on your preference. We'll just put it back to 2 now since we want it to be a bit slower. Now let's talk about focusing on objects. So for example, sometimes you just like to focus on an object for multiple reasons. Let's say you went out of bounds and you need to get back there quickly. There is a way. You can either select an object from the viewport if you can, or not if you can select it through the world outliner and just press F, and it's gonna instantly zoom and focus on that specific actor. So like another example here, F, there you go. And this is a quick way of navigating through the level, especially useful if you get lost or move somewhere where you didn't want to. Okay, but we're working on 2D games, and the 3D viewport isn't really that useful to us. It's gonna be useful in some cases, and I'll show you where exactly, but for now we'd like to stick with a more traditional 2D approach. To do this, you can just go here where it says perspective and click it and use one of the orthographic views. For the purposes of this demo, I've used the right view as the default, and when I press that, it's gonna go into an orthographic view and the camera will be fixed on 2 axes. So as you can see, now I can navigate it by just right clicking the mouse and dragging it in every direction. So this is how you navigate during the orthographic view. In case when you switch to the right viewport you got something like this, don't worry, it's just the view mode. You can click here right next to the right viewport, and for the view mode press the lit button, and that should fix the issue. Let's say we want to add another actor to our viewport. How do we do that? In order to do that, we'll need to navigate to our content browser, and let's go to blueprints and select an enemy, select a simple AI, and let's take the BP Rodent, which is this guy. So you just click him and drag him onto the viewport wherever you want him to stay. So yeah, here, boom. And now basically you've dragged an item from the content browser to your viewport. It's still in the content browser, so it doesn't disappear. This just makes an instance of your actor inside the level. Now that we have our actor inside the level, we want to manipulate him, right? So you have 3 ways of manipulating: moving, rotating, and scaling. You can do this a couple of ways. The easiest way is either using the small icons here. This is select and translate, select and rotate, and select and scale. Or for me it's easier to use the W for moving, E for rotating, and R for scaling. So W, you move him up and down. E, you rotate him, and you scale him. So you can scale him in one direction, you can scale him in the other direction, or by holding the line between these two, you can scale him uniformly in all directions. Another way to do this is by going to the details tab and editing the values directly. So for 1 and 1, and we'll put this to 0, and it's gonna ruin his rotation, and you can do it like this, or you can manually add it to value. So whoops, where did it go? There you go. He went under the cliff. And this concludes the second video in our tutorial series. Hopefully you found the information here useful. It was probably too slow for some of you and too fast for others, and I apologize, but I promise the next tutorial will be a bit more interesting. We'll be creating a new level, we'll be adding some tile sets to it and some characters and some enemies, and making a very small playable prototype really quickly, so that should be fun. Thanks for sticking to the end, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video. Thank you.